This is Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews. And today we're going to be talking about another comic that came out this week. One that I haven't really seen too many people talking about since it first came out a couple of months ago. We're going to be talking about Symbiote Spider-Man Alien Reality, written by Peter David and drawn by Greg Land. I haven't always been the biggest Greg Land fan, but I think his art fits for this book. And Peter David was one of my favorite writers from the 90s, working on a lot of work on the Incredible Hulk and the Professor Hulk era and near the end of the Gray Hulk era. I really dig Peter David's work. His book Last Call from Incredible Hulk was also a pretty good book. And people say, like, why isn't he doing anything? And I'm like, he is. He's writing this book that nobody's really talking about. And in this book, I kind of like this book as far as going off of, like, because I read the Wasteland stories with Old Man Logan, Old Man Hawkeye, Old Man Quill, and Avengers of the Wastelands. I like these alternate, universe stories. And in this alternate universe story, this isn't like the Wastelands, but I just like stories that take place in a different kind of version of the Marvel Universe. And in this story, starting way back in Symbiote Spider-Man, and now changed into Alien Reality, the symbiote and Peter never separated. It's still a part of him. It's still got its own agenda. Peter is not aware of how much control it has of him. And in this story, this part of the story, the whole world has changed, and like Hobgoblin is the sorcerer supreme. Doctor Strange doesn't have his powers. Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow, is now Black Cat. Spider-Man's aunt has died, and Uncle Ben's alive. And that was like in the last issue. And it was really, it was at the end of the last issue. He goes home to see Aunt May, and there's Uncle Ben standing there, and he's like freaked out because this whole the universe has changed things for what he thinks for the better. But what happens is Hobgoblin comes and blows the place up, blames Spider-Man, and Aunt May dies in this explosion, and Uncle Ben blames Spider-Man. So it's an interesting thing because we haven't seen Uncle Ben in a while. It's one of those perma-deaths, kind of like Gwen Stacy, or well, used to be Gwen Stacy was permanently dead. But Uncle Ben has been one of those that never really, very, very rarely has ever been seen in anything but just like a flashback. So I really like what they're doing with this story, this kind of Elseworlds type story for Marvel. And in this issue, they're on Doctor Strange and Black Cat, Black Widow, and Spider-Man are on their way to where they can train in learning sorcery. And they're heading up to, like, I love that Hobgoblin actually has kind of got sorcerer powers now. Kind of reminds me of, like, the old Spider-Man McFarlane story with Hobgoblin becoming being a demon. But they go to Antarctica where they're supposed to do this training, and Morbius shows up, and everybody's after the symbiote. And Peter, he doesn't really understand why at this point. But they go in to basically the old Camartage, where Doctor Strange learned how to use his powers. And so they go inside, and they say that basically he tells them everything on the inside of this place works differently. So we'll be in here for years learning how to teach you defense and Black Cat offense of spells. Only a few weeks will go by inside this place. Meanwhile, Morbius is outside saying, like, hey, I can wait you guys out. It doesn't matter. I'm endless. I'm ageless. I'm a vampire. Well, everybody's supposed to be asleep. The symbiote, while Peter's asleep, takes over and attacks Morbius, flinging itself at him, basically messing Morbius up pretty hardcore to the point where it looks like he's killed him. And this is where he's stopped by Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange is like, I know what's going on here, but I'm not going to stop you. I realize that you can take over Peter whenever you want, but what I'm asking you to do is let him learn this training, and I'll teach you too, and you'll still have all this knowledge wherever this takes you. All I ask is that you let him finish, and then you can do whatever. We let us finish, try to save the world. So they kind of have a little montage here. And one of the things that's always like been a criticism of like Lands is his faces and his everybody's always got their mouths hanging open. Everybody's always looking like they're shouting. But it works in this book because this is a pretty action-heavy story. So they go back with the knowledge that they have, and Doctor Octopus, look at this. This is like old school Doc Ock trying some stuff, and he realizes Spider-Man's learned some new tricks since they last fought, and he specifically taught Spider-Man defensive spells. He taught him defensive spells so that he would always still be able to rely on his own strength and powers to win the day, but just to have enough, whatever people could throw at him, he'd be able to defend against as he always, rises to the occasion, while he teaches more like people like Natasha more like offensive spells. So they end up taking Doc Ock down, and they rush into the Sanctum Sanctorum where Doctor Strange is. And this is kind of like where the symbiote part, that has taken over Peter has made him more rash still. And they go kind of charging in. He goes after Natasha, who, at this point in the story, also we should tell you that him and Black Widow are a thing in this, and it's like, man, Peter, first Mary Jane, then you get Black Widow. He's like got the redheads on lockdown. So they go in there, and Hobgoblin tries to, use his... He thinks he's just going to walk all over them again, but now Peter's learned new tricks to mess with Hobgoblin from stopping him. And this is where he pulls out, and also he turned Wong into a dancing, little clapping monkey toy. But Peter, he's like, I'm the Sorcerer Supreme now, because Hobgoblin wasn't the Sorcerer Supreme. He learned sorcery, but who did he learn it from? He had learned it from Baron Mordo, who is like now the Sorcerer Supreme instead of Doctor Strange in this world. And so they attack, and Doctor Strange hits him, like, because he doesn't have powers, he hits him with mace right in the face. And he hits the eye Agamotto to see what's going on. Like, what does the eye have to say? And so whatever he sees, it has him freak out, and he goes, oh crap, Peter, you and I got to get out of here. And it turns out that Baron Mordo and Natasha were actually working together, that she was supposed to bring him there. So I think they wanted the symbiote as well. So now she's like, I have to do everything myself. So next issue, it's called, they say it's called Betrayal of the Red Cat. She's Red Cat, not Black Cat. And this, it's definitely the character of Nightmare, who is another kind of not a cosmic character, but like a Stephen Strange character. And I'm only reviewing this book because it deserves to be talked about a little bit more. If you're interested in a good Spider-Man story right now, because in my opinion, a lot of Spider-Man stuff is just not very, very good. And it sucks that you have to go to a kind of an Elseworlds book, kind of like how the best Batman books are on Black Label right now. Right now, to me, Amazing Spider-Man is just only okay, okay to bad. It started out great. There is no Spectacular Spider-Man. I didn't get as much out of the life of Spider-Man as everybody else did, but I didn't finish it. So I'm going to go back and try to read that. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man was Edge of Spider-Verse and all this other stuff. There really isn't a lot of Spider-Man content out there. And for my money, I'm just recommending this over Amazing Spider-Man right now because I like this story of the symbiote suit still being attached to, what if it had never left Peter Parker? And so that's why I'm talking about it. So if you like this review, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at reviews_gun. So don't forget to keep reading comics, everybody, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye. If I can turn it off.